Good afternoon, and welcome back to Driver's Ed. We are in our last week. We have 3 days of content that we'll be going over, and Thursday would be our final. So we're going to wait to get people to come on and sign in. So I'm going to wait for just a little bit before we get going. So Josie's here, Mark's here. So remember to put your name in the comment line and to text me a message saying that you are present because attendance is important for getting credit for the program that you're doing. This is by far the most challenging thing that I've had to do with teaching driver's ed is to do half in class and the last half now online. So it looks like we're getting people. Madison's here. Brooke. So did everybody have a good weekend? Hopefully, even though we're not able to drive, hopefully you've been driving with your parents. Every chance that you get, you should be going out and trying to get behind the wheel of the car. This quarantine basically just has to do with family members, so I believe you're going to be okay driving with your parents. There's Joey. Now remember, I can see during this live feed how many people are out actually watching, so it seems hard to believe that I've got people signing in, but it only says 4 people are watching. So I know I see more than 4 names listed here. There's Owen. So today we're going to be talking about highway driving, getting on and off the highway. This is one of the last things that we would do when we're actually doing our 10 hours of driving, but unfortunately we're not able to get behind the wheel of the car right now. So there's Rachel and Natalie and Kyva, Maddie. So we're almost enough that we can start going. So we're going to wait another minute. There's Luca. Just because today is such a nice day and I'm a big sports fanatic. I love our Boston sports. If you can take a look at the screen, I have a picture of a Red Sox game from last year. And this is a game that my son attended. And when I was going through the videos today to put together today's program, I came across the video of my son attending this game. And he is actually, I'm going to show you in a moment, he is the one in the upper deck making one of these catches. So I think we just about got everybody here. So just before we get going, hey Clayton, Olivia. So here is a picture of my son catching a foul ball. He texted me right after this happened, so I went and got the. There he is. I taught him everything he knows. That's my son. Look at that. Everybody was nervous that he was going to lean over the railing and topple down to the bottom, but hey, Val. All right, let's get into what we're going to cover today. So make sure you have some paper and you have pen or pencil to write down notes. Because, like I said earlier, the state doesn't do a very good job of the new manual of basically taking you through step by step of what is needed to do certain things. It's just kind of an overview. So when you take a look at the manual that you have, it's a very short section about highway driving. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper on what you need to know about driving on the highway. So the first thing that I want you to write down, there are differences and there are some things that make highways alike. So the first thing I want you to write down is that the terminology that you will see about the road that you're going to be getting onto, can be broken down into 5 different terms. So interstate, toll road, thoroughways, turnpikes, and freeways. So those are the 5 terms that are frequently used from state to state, indicating that you're going to be on a particular roadway that's going to get you on and off at certain locations, and the speed's going to be much, much higher. So what I want you to write down is that what makes them different, what makes them alike are these 3 things. First thing is speed. Some of them will max out at speeds around 55. That is your common interstate or state highway speed is 55 miles per hour. Now, some turnpikes and freeways will get much higher, as we said earlier. You could be looking at 65, 70, maybe even 75, 80 in different parts of the country. And then the last thing that you need to understand, and this won't be so much of a problem as it has been in the past, is money. Now, some of these roadways that you will be merging onto, it does require you to have money with you. Now, back when I was in school and your parents were in school, there was a thing called tokens, or you would have to put cash to a toll booth attendant. But now we have something called Easy Pass, which is something you attach to your windshield, and as you go through, just like a scanner at a supermarket, it basically has a code number on your vehicle, and it scans it and sends or deducts the amount of money that you're going to be charged through an account through Easy Pass. So it's basically like a debit card, but we're going to get into that a little bit more in just a little bit. Now, the 2 main reasons why we have roads that allow you to go at a faster rate of speed. Okay, one is it gets you to where you want to go a lot sooner. And then the second part is that you have a better chance of getting there safely. So even though people are afraid of crashes at higher speeds, thinking, oh, if I hit someone going 65, 70 miles per hour, it's going to probably lead to a lot of injury or death. But you've got to remember that being on a highway, you're all going in the same direction, probably like 80% of the time. Very few highways now have two-way traffic. Like the Spalding Turnpike comes to mind, is that once you get above Rochester and just a little bit further up where the turnpike ends, you will have oncoming traffic. But for the most part, when you get down around Rochester, there's a median of grass that will separate those 2 highways, and you only have people going in the same direction. Now, the problem of being on the highway is that you have to think quicker and react faster to speeds. So a lot of people ask me when we do lane changes, when we do a lesson in lane changes, why don't we practice lane changes on a highway? My answer to you is, if you can't do a good lane change at 20 miles per hour downtown Durham, why would I take you up onto a highway where you're making a lane change at 55? So some of the common problems is that when you look in your mirrors, your hands will start to move. You have a tendency not to position yourself in the center of your lane, and you're going to go from side to side. So you've got to really have good control of your vehicle position-wise, as well as learning how to pick up speed, drop off speed when you're following other cars to do lane changes on a highway. So I feel when I get you out driving, once we get to that point, then that's when usually the lesson of a highway drive will come into play. So some of you are, I think, right around at that point, right where we are right now. Some of you are really close to getting done, and I really wish I had access to driving you guys in the last couple weeks. So really there isn't much room for error, is that if you make a mistake, you're not going to be able to recover from it that easy. This I do want you to write down for the final, so this will come up. Okay, so know this. The 2 terms that I want you to write down is controlled access and limited access highway. Now, they both mean the same thing. So we're talking about on-ramps and off-ramps. Why the state uses both terms, I don't know. Maybe it's because from state to state you may see different terms. So they want you to understand they both mean the same thing. So we're basically talking about when we've got 2 highways is we've got cars coming on and we've got cars merging. So you just can't come from a stop sign or a traffic light usually onto a highway. So that's what makes it limited or controlled. Now, interchanges, this is what I was doing with my hands. I kind of jumped the gun. With interchanges, you've got an overpass and an underpass. So it's basically two separate highways. Like you've got Route 4 and you've got the Spalding Turnpike underneath. Okay, so you basically have an underpass and an overpass, and then your ramps are going to be before or after the underpass. And I'm going to give you a worksheet that you will have for your homework to kind of go over that, so you have a basic understanding of that. Now, this isn't in the textbook. This probably isn't even in the manual, but I wanted to throw this in here so you have a basic understanding of this, is mile markers. Now, if you look off to the right side of a highway, there'll be a green, what we call mile marker. And what that does is it gives you your certain location from where the road begins. So when you're heading north, okay, the numbers are going to go higher, like 10.2. The next mile marker will be 10.4. So they're going 0.2 of a mile. When you go south, the numbers go down. When you head west, they go down. When you head east, they go up. All right. And what I want you to write down in your notes, very helpful to understand that if you ever have to give the location of where you are, you can always walk to your next mile marker and call your parents or AAA, whoever you're trying to get help from, and indicate where you're located on that road. Because an interstate is very long. So you just can't say I'm on Interstate 95, because Interstate 95 goes from Maine to Florida. That's a pretty long area to indicate where you're located. Now, with phones and tracking, GPS would come into play here, and they'd probably be able to pinpoint you right very close on a map by Find My Phone app. So that's going to come into play too. Let's see if this works. Let's see if I've got my...
Another common maneuver is passing in the lane of oncoming traffic. It's common, but it's not always safe and must be done cautiously.
It becomes a danger because of the judgment factors that we don't judge distance very well.
The problem is twofold. It's hard to tell how long it's going to take to accelerate to get past the car we're trying to pass. And it's hard to tell how close the car is in the oncoming lane and how fast that car is traveling towards you.
It's risky business because drivers have a hard time judging that dynamic movement.
If you do plan to pass, keep this in mind. An oncoming car or truck does not seem to be traveling as fast as it really is. Here's a good rule of thumb. If an oncoming car is far enough away that it does not seem to be moving at all, then it is generally far enough away for you to safely make your pass. But if you can see that oncoming car is moving, then it's a different story.
If you go out there to look and you see that car looks like it's moving towards you, you better tuck back in again because you're probably too close.
There are other times when it is not safe to pass. If your view is blocked by either a hill or a curve, don't pass. Assume there is an oncoming car or truck just out of sight. Passing requires extreme caution because of the threat of having a head-on collision.
When you talk about having a head-on collision, you're talking about doubling and tripling the forces, and maybe the forces even quadruple, depends on your speed and the nature of the car coming towards you.
Also, avoid passing at intersections. This includes intersecting roads, railroad crossings, even entrances to shopping centers. If you are on a two-lane road, pass only on the left. It is dangerous and usually illegal to pass on the right. The exception is when a car ahead of you signals to make a left turn. If the car in front of you is stopped to make a left-hand turn, never pass to his left. Instead, you may pass to his right on the shoulder. In any event, experts urge drivers to not take passing lightly. It's a common driving task that requires utmost caution. This is Jim Angelo.
Okay, One of the most difficult things to do on a highway is to pass other cars. Now, in the video that we just saw, we're talking about oncoming traffic. It is not difficult to pass a traffic or cars on a highway that's going in one direction or a one-way highway. It's basically a lane change, as we said earlier. So as you saw in the video, it takes extra time and care to know whether it is going to be safe. And I thought it was kind of ironic. I pulled this up from a training conference that I went to, and I thought that I'd use this for today's lesson, is that they were passing on a bridge. If you could remember back, is that it showed guardrails and there was like a concrete area. That's not a very good place. Why they made that a passing zone, I don't know. But they were correct telling you that it's not safe to do it on hills and curves. And if you can't tell the speed of a vehicle, if you have any doubt about whether you can do it, then you probably shouldn't do it at all. You should just wait. So that's the biggest thing about passing. If in doubt, just don't do it. Okay, special features on a highway that I want you to know about. The reflectors near a guardrail, okay? Now, we talked about mile markers being green. Now, when you approach on a highway, you get to a bridge, like we saw in that video, where there's a guardrail, there's a reflector, which will be red at the beginning, green at the end. That's telling you in bad weather conditions or in fog that your car should not leave the pavement, shouldn't go any further than where those reflectors are. Now, when you're on a normal road, whites to the right, yellows to the left, that should guide you when your vision's not the best. Now, rumble strips, even though we talked about fatigue and going, off the road and jerking the wheel and coming back on, it's important to understand that when you hit a rumble strip where you're nodding off, your first reaction is to jerk the wheel really, really quick. Now, rumble strips are really handy for people that think they're driving well, they're positioned well in their lane, they feel the car move a little bit, then they've got to bring it back, and they can usually do it very gently. Or if you're not paying attention by looking at your phone, same thing, you're able to come back into your lane without much of an oversteer. But someone that's nodding off will almost inevitably turn the wheel too much, and they'll shoot over into another lane. Let's go through Easy Pass a little bit more into detail here. Is that it's important to understand that you can go through any lane on a highway when you come to a toll booth that has an Easy Pass sign underneath the number of where the lane is. So always look for a purple Easy Pass sign. Now, they normally still have someone collecting money, a toll taker, off to the far right. Very rarely are you going to see a toll taker at one of the far left lanes. Slower traffic and smoother traffic will always be middle or over to the right. And the other thing about it only takes a few seconds to go through. They do give you a recommended speed to go through the toll booth. So even though it's not a law, it is a recommendation, okay, but you still should heed to that speed. Now, in this news article here, this is just New Hampshire. It says they've put a lot of money into this Easy Pass, so they're collecting a lot. It says they've upgraded. It cost $7 million, but they found that they were losing millions of dollars back when they had toll takers, when people would just drive right through without paying the money at all. So in the long run, over many years, they're finding this to be more efficient, and traffic won't be backed up as much. Now, they do take a picture of your license plate. So if you don't have any money into your account, they're going to send you your ticket. But they don't take a picture of you driving. That's what it says down here at the very bottom of the article. Some toll roads, write this down, will have a card that you have to pick up at the toll booth. So when you get on like the Mass Pike in Massachusetts, you come to the toll booth, you stop, reach out, grab one of those tickets, and as you drive further on the highway, depending where you get off, will dictate what you pay for a fee. A couple things you need to write down. One is that if you lose the ticket, let's say that you stop at a rest area, you get out of your vehicle and it blows away, or you can't find it in your car, you have to pay the highest amount which is indicated on that ticket. So you have to have a ticket when you get on. You need a ticket when you get off. Bridges. Going over a bridge may cost you extra money. And in this article right here, it says that the hike on the Chesapeake Bridge, which I believe is down around Virginia, I believe, or Delaware, it went from $2.50 to $4, and the New York, New Jersey Hudson River Bridge went from $8 to $12. And I think if you go over the George Washington Bridge in New York City, I believe that the cost to go over the bridge is around $16 or $18, and that's one way. So if you make a mistake and you leave the city, you have to get back in. It's going to cost you like $32. So don't make that mistake. Depending on your axle, meaning that if you're ever driving a truck that has multiple axles, like a semi-tractor trailer, will have 3, 4, 5 different sets of tires, axles. So that's going to cost them more. And also notice that if you have the Easy Pass, it's going to cost you $3. But if they have to send it to you by mail, it's going to be a little bit more. It's going to be right around $4.60. So it does get expensive. So make sure you get in the lane that you need to be in as you go through the toll booth. Know your ramp. So let's talk about getting on. The hardest part of driving on the highway is really not getting off. It's getting on. So know the ramp that you need to get on, because a lot of times you'll have two. One's heading north, one's heading south. So make sure that you know which one you're getting on. Keep up your speed while you're looking for a hole in traffic. Do not stop unless it's necessary. Write that down. Put a star next to it. I will be testing you on that. Most people will have a problem merging onto the highway where they don't feel comfortable with what they're seeing, and they bring their speed down too low. So what they're saying here is if you're going 50, 55 miles per hour, so you're right around the speed limit on the highway of 55, people are more apt to let you merge in at 50, 55 than if you were going 35 or 40. So the faster you go, the more likely someone's going to open up an area for you to go. And this is the other thing. Use your directional at the very end. Usually a directional right before you merge on is going to allow people to open up that space for you just a little bit more. If you've put it on at the beginning of the ramp, everybody knows you're merging on. So they're just not even thinking about you. They're going to go, oh, he's going to do it later. And in reality, you want to do it now. So use the whole ramp, go to the very, very end, wait till you get to the end, use your directional, be going at that highway speed, and then try to merge right out. Know what blended lanes. Blended lanes are when you go underneath an underpass and your exit's right after the underpass, but yet there's an on-ramp just before. So you've got some people coming on, some people going off. So you've got two flows of traffic. One slowing down with a directional to get off, one speeding up with a directional to get on. That is also an indicator that the underpass and the overpass, the interchange, is probably a clover leaf. And in the handout that I'm going to send you later tonight, you'll have to figure out how to get on and off the highway at certain locations. So this is what we're going to do with that worksheet. Now, this is what I want you to write down. When we talked about making a lane change, the 4 steps to a lane change is directional first, then check your mirrors, then check over your shoulder, and then merge over. Now, with getting onto a highway, merging is speed up. You want to get pretty darn close to that highway speed at the very end of the ramp. Check your rearview mirror first. Usually, now write this down, usually you're going to be doing it right at the yield sign. So the minute you look to the right and see a yield sign, you should be looking in your rearview mirror. Then you're checking your side mirror. Then you're putting your directional on at the very end of the ramp, and then you're coming into the flow of traffic. Of course, the heavier the traffic, the more complicated that this becomes. Let's talk about merging. So let's see if this works.
It can be a high anxiety situation. You're trying to enter the freeway. Cars on the freeway are whizzing by. You're trying to keep an eye on the cars in front of you. Drivers in the cars behind you are eager for their chance to merge. It can be chaotic, and you're the one at the gate.
Actually, a merge is probably one of your highest risk maneuvers that you do as a driver.
Dr. Terry Klein with Eastern Kentucky University is a leading authority on driving safety and an expert on traffic rules.
It's really a rather tricky maneuver because what we're asking you to do as a driver is pay attention to both the things happening in front of you, the things happening behind you, and the things happening 2 lanes to your left or 2 lanes to your right.
Dr. Klein says this complicates things because as human beings, we can really pay strict attention to only one thing at a time. So as tense as it may be, you've got to learn how to merge if you want to enter a freeway.
The bottom line is that you have to prepare for a merge sooner.
Dr. Klein says to prepare for a merge well before you're actually ready to merge. Identify a gap between cars on the freeway where you can merge. Then, continue increasing your speed until you reach the gap you selected. Dr. Klein says instead of increasing speed, drivers have a tendency to actually slow down before merging. A big mistake.
You have cars behind you coming up, they're trying to enter at speed themselves, so you could cause a chain reaction type collision behind you as well.
Dr. Klein says drivers tend to minimize the dangers in merging, and that there are actually more crashes that happen during merging than during passing.
Once on the freeway, adjust your speed to keep a cushion of space around your car.
The closer you get to a car around you, the more they drive you and the less you driving yourself. You become their puppet. They brake, you brake. They speed up, you speed up. They stop suddenly, you stop suddenly.
Finally, once you've merged and adjusted your speed, you probably will change lanes at some point. Some quick pointers. Look around you for large enough space to move into. Use your mirrors. Turn your head to look quickly to the side before changing lanes. Then make your lane change. Changing lanes, keeping space around your car, and merging. Each is a critical task in our driving experience.
Okay, it is by far the hardest thing to do on a highway is the merge. So my recommendation for you is that when you do finish up the driving portion with me and you're ready to go for your license, a lot of people go to Dover Point for their exam. If you go to Dover Point, you more than likely are going to be merging onto a highway. If that's the one thing that makes you extremely nervous, then maybe Epping or another testing facility would probably be better for you. Don't try to bring yourself to the hardest place to do your test. Do a testing site that you'd feel comfortable and that you'd be able to do the maneuvers, safely and correctly. So Dover Point can be kind of complicated. Now that they've worked on construction and things have settled down a little bit, it's not quite as bad, but I'm still not a big fan of the Jersey barriers that they have down at Dover Point. Kind of blocks down when you make your shoulder check or your side mirror check of what you can see, and it's a very short ramp. So the ramp right before the bridge can be kind of complicated during the early morning hours and late afternoon daily commute. So just keep that under consideration. Now, leaving the expressway is one of the easiest things to do. Really, all you've got to do is pay attention to the exit number. Now that we have GPS is probably telling you well in advance, probably close to 500 feet, when you need to be getting off the highway. So you're going to be looking of changing lanes if you're in one of the middle or one of the fast, traveling lanes. So put on your directional, filter through lanes of traffic to get you to the far right lane because you're going to be merging off. When you get to the ramp, remember, do not brake when you're still going straight on the highway. You only want to brake once you've had your directional on, you've gotten off onto the ramp area. The ramp area is where you bring your speed down. You don't want to be bringing your speed down on the main highway, because that's going to aggravate people behind you. People are going to beep the horn at you, give you the finger. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. And now at the bottom of the ramp, you can write this down. If you're going to be making a right-hand turn, you know you're going to have a stop sign. You're going to have a stop sign or a yield sign. But if you are going to be making a left at the bottom, you're always going to have a stop sign. So right could be a yield or a stop, but left at the bottom will always, always be a stop. And when you're off on the ramp and you're getting down at the bottom, you're going to make a right-hand turn, but there's someone right next to you. Rather than stop bumper to bumper with the car that's next to you and then try to creep out, because then he may creep out, what you want to do is you want to stay back so you can look over the back of his vehicle, over the trunk of his vehicle, or if he's a truck or a van, you're going to be just beyond the back of his bumper so you can look off to the left and see your gap. You could still make a right-hand turn at a stop sign if you're 5-6 feet from the line. That's just giving you a better view of where your opening is and where your gap is. Because a lot of times when you get down to the bottom, the cars to the left of you are going to just be jockeying up with you, and you're not going to be able to see anything until they leave, and then the next person's coming up. And it's going to be really difficult to decide when to merge. Tips for survival: be alert. Fatigue is very common on a highway because people get bored. I will tell you, anything more than a half hour, it is very boring, because all you're doing is maintaining position, maintaining speed, checking your mirrors. But there aren't pedestrians, there aren't traffic lights, usually not animals crossing the road, although sometimes that can happen. Allow plenty of room when passing. We've already talked about that, so you don't want to do anything where you're cutting back in. Don't get too close to people, so stay back your 4 seconds. That's the time frame that you want to be back. Always use turn signals. A lot of people on the highway think there's really nobody around or anybody very close by. I really don't need to use my signal. I'm just going to, slide over. Always indicate, because a blinking light will always get someone's attention. Once you get their attention, then they're going to stay back away from you, and in your following distance, your space around your vehicle is going to be a lot better. Keep a steady speed. Keep with the flow of traffic. Now, of course, people are going to have a debate. Does that mean going above the speed limit? Does it mean going the speed limit? If you've got at least 3 lanes, there's going to be a lane that you should feel comfortable with going a certain speed. As long as you got your 4 seconds in front of you and everybody's going together, I think you're going to be left alone, as long as you're not excessively breaking the speed limit. So if you're in the middle lane going 59, 60, and a 55, they're going to probably leave you alone. But if you're in the left lane, and remember, the left lane is for passing. It's not for traveling, which means once you've done passing people, you got to get back to the middle. Don't stay in the left lane. And they're always looking for people that are jockeying for position. They go from middle to left, left to middle to right, right to middle, and they're just jumping around all over the place. They're the ones that are more apt to get stopped for going too fast. But if everybody's in one lane and they're all going 3 miles, 7 miles, above or below the speed limit, they're going to probably leave you alone as long as your following distance is good. Don't stop on a highway unless necessary. So we're talking about a driving emergency, something that's mechanical, something that's medical. But remember, you always want to do it to the right. You don't want to do it to the left. So use your signal, filter through traffic, okay, and get to the right side of the road and stop over there. And with fatigue, always stop when you feel tired. Be aware what you're behind. You could be behind a truck that has construction material. So wood with nails could be coming off. You could be behind a truck with leaves and they don't have a tarp over the top. This is a case in point where someone was behind someone that was carrying a mattress, and the mattress snapped off the back of the vehicle, and you can see by the article it was a fatal crash. Okay, that should never ever happen. Okay, for one, if you're going to carry something on your vehicle or on your truck, you've got to make sure that it's secured tightly. It can't, pop off, because you're going to be liable for what happens. And if they find the driver is liable for that incident, even though he didn't purposely do it, he did cause it. and there could be ramifications from that. So make sure you know what you're behind. So change lanes, speed up, back off, but just don't be behind somebody you don't feel comfortable with. Okay, let's take a look at some insurance video clips. This is by Travelers Insurance. I found these on their website, and they did a very good job of just doing a short definition of following distance. Now, they don't have the following distance that we have in New Hampshire now. It used to be 3, now it's 4. So back when they did this, this was 3 seconds, but I thought they did a good job. Now remember, larger vehicles have more mass and more weight. So when a large vehicle is behind you, they should be more than 4 seconds. Motorcycle could technically be a little bit closer because it takes them less distance to stop. And we're going to talk about being around motorcycles tomorrow, but let's take a look at this one.
It can be a high.
Timing is everything. And when you're on the highway, every second counts. We usually think of stopping in terms of space, but what really matters is time. It takes about 1.5 seconds to notice a potential risk in front of you, and another 1.5 seconds to react, hit the brakes, and slow down. So you want to give yourself at least 3 seconds between the car in front of you and your vehicle. To measure, wait for the car ahead of you to pass a set object. Tree, road sign, light pole, any clear marker will do. After it passes, start counting. 1001, 1002, 1003. If you reach that same object before you reach 3, you're too close. Of course, this 3-second baseline is right for a car in normal driving conditions. Driving in bad weather? Add 1 more second. Driving an SUV? Add another second. If you're driving a commercial vehicle, it's gotta be at least 6 seconds. So don't forget the 3-second rule. And don't forget to share the safety with your friends and family.
Okay, the next term that I want you to write down is no zone. Now, this is kind of a precursor of what we're going to be covering tomorrow, because we're going to be talking about driving around a tractor-trailer truck. So what I want you to understand, no zones are blind spots. So blind spots are, of course, areas that we can't see beyond our side mirrors. But what the no zone basically means is do not drive in a blind spot for anything more than a couple seconds. So you should be speeding up out of that area, or you're going to be braking and going backwards to allow the truck to go forward. So let's take a look at the no zone area.
There are hundreds of thousands of truck accidents every year. Driving a vehicle this size, that's a tough job. Imagine trying to stop 80,000 pounds going 55 miles an hour. That tempting space trucks leave in front of them, well, it's there because they need it. When you cut in front of a truck, you're taking that buffer room away, which leaves them no space to stop, which is a really bad idea. Driving too closely behind a truck isn't safe either. A tractor-trailer blocks a huge part of your view, making it hard to see what's up ahead. If they have to stop, your only warning is their brake lights, and sometimes that's just not enough. So always allow room for the truck zone, and give yourself a few extra seconds of space in front of or behind them. Remember the truck zone when you're on the road, and don't forget to share the safety with your friends and family.
Okay, we'll be going through that in a little bit more detail tomorrow, but I wanted to throw that in here on the highway lesson because there's nothing more uncomfortable for a new driver to be surrounded by tractor trailers on either side and in front of them. It's almost like you're being boxed in. So learning how to adjust your position and speed to stay away from those no zones is going to make them feel more comfortable of where you are, and it's going to make you feel more comfortable because they're not going to be right beside you. There's one other thing I want to show you from Travelers, and it's the technology. We've talked about this before, but they're going to give you 3. So make sure that you have a basic understanding. Maybe your parents' car has this already. So it's going to be lane departure, it's going to be following distance, and blind spot monitor. So let's take a look at how technology is actually helping us when we're driving on a highway, depending on the vehicle that we have.
One day, cars may be able to drive themselves, and hopefully we'll all be safer for it. But not yet. While there are great new technologies available, it's up to us humans to use them safely. Today we're talking about 3 in particular: blind spot monitoring, lane departure warning, and smart cruise control. Smart cruise control and blind spot monitoring use sensors to help you detect and avoid other vehicles, almost like having an extra set of eyes on the road. Lane departure warning uses cameras to actually read the lines of the road and alert you if you're drifting out of your lane. With all those extra sensors and cameras, we're bound to stay safe, right? Well, not so fast. The technology is great, but it isn't perfect. For example, bad weather can hamper the signal. And some drivers may rely on the sensors too much and stop looking out for themselves. So don't over-rely on this helpful technology. Always remain alert and keep your eyes on the road. After all, you're the one who's in control. For now, at least, share the safety with your friends and family.
So that's pretty helpful if you've got that technology in your vehicle. It's going to make you a safer driver. Okay, let's talk about traffic circles and roundabouts. So I want you to write down traffic circle and roundabout. The thing I want you to write down with roundabouts is that it is a smaller circle and smaller or slower speeds. It usually indicates a safer way to maneuver around an area with a roundabout. But I have a tendency to disagree with the state when they take a look at this, because they think that the Lee Circle is safer than Portsmouth. I actually think it's easier to drive around the Portsmouth Circle than the Lee roundabout, or you can call it a circle. But basically the reason why we have traffic circles is that we want to get the flow of traffic around without stopping. So people are slowing and merging. And the problem is that people are usually approaching a little bit too fast and not using signals as they get out. And it gets to be a little bit too complicated. So here's an example in Europe. And Europe uses roundabouts quite a bit. And as you can see from the picture, is that traffic, of course, is going counterclockwise. Clockwise. We're going counterclockwise around the circle. But the reason why I wanted to show you this picture in Europe is that they have designated lanes and arrows indicating where you need to be to go certain places. And that's where the big hang up for most people learning what to do with a roundabout or circle is, if I have multiple lanes, which lane do I get into? So here's a picture of the Lee Circle from an aerial view. So if we take a look, they've added a second lane. It used to be a single lane. And depending on where you want to go, so this is what I want you to write down. You're always staying. If we made a circle and there are 4 areas to go around the circle to get off, there's 4, just like north, south, east, and west. So let's just use that. If you're in the right lane, you only have 2 options. You're taking your first exit or you're taking your second. All right? That's the only 2 options you have if you're in the right lane. If you're in the left lane, you have 3 options. You could take the second exit, the third, or you can come all the way around to backtrack to make a complete circle to head back to where you were going. All right, so you need to know that those are your only 2 options. And we're going to see that in a video in a moment. For some reason, the audio didn't work on the video. Let's get right to the video. Oh, where is the video? Here we go. So notice the arrows, okay? And you have signs. You got pavement markings and you have signs. And notice the dotted lines between the exits. Those are the areas that you're going to be going from the inner lane, the left lane, and being able to go out or to merge in. Okay, usually at a roundabout, you're able to get more people around. There's going to be more of a delay if it's a signal. And let me drop the road rage. Let's see if this works. There we go. Whoop. I'm up too far. Let's go back. So that's basically a good description of highway driving and things that you should know. So with what we got left for today, let's just start the section on road rage. And part of your homework, so you can write this down, is I want you to find your own article about road rage and try to find something that is in New England. Try not to get something that's, overseas or far away or way back. I want you to find a current article about road rage, because I want you to understand that it happens more often than you think, and it's close by. It is in this area. I mean, if you've got a license and you've got emotions, it's going to happen. You're going to encounter people that don't like the way that you drive, or you're not going to like the way that they drive, and that's going to create conflict. So what I want you to write down in your notes, so let's start a section here on road rage, is don't be a victim. It could change your life. Some of the articles that you're going to come across will have people that are injured. People will die from road rage incidents. It's amazing how people will go off the handle at people over the simplest of things. So before we get going on road rage, and I want everybody that's online right now, let me just take a peek. We got 16 people watching right now. So I want everybody in the comments is to write down what driving behavior that you would see on the road would aggravate you. I'm going to do one. You can use the one that I've got, but if you want to come up with something different that aggravates you, the thing that aggravates me a lot, I'm going to give one that a lot of people don't use, is people driving with their high beam headlights on, coming towards me or behind me. Okay, that really aggravates me. So I want you to text in the comments, okay, what's going to aggravate you, and I'm going to show you an incident from Massachusetts on road rage. Okay.
A movie scene, but real-life road rage. After a fender bender, 65-year-old Richard Kamrowski jumped on the hood of an SUV, attempting to leave the scene. The driver speeding up to 70 miles per hour on the busy Massachusetts Turnpike during rush hour.
He kept going fast, slow, tried to get me to slide off. I wasn't getting off the car.
Kamrowski managed to hang on for miles as an onlooker captured the dangerous highway ride. At one point, you see Kamrowski looking down at his phone, dialing 911 for help.
Kind of like just survival mode.
The driver finally hit the brakes when Good Samaritans blocked him in. One bystander drawing a gun. Police arrested the driver, Mark Fitzgerald, for assault with a dangerous weapon, among other charges.
He took my water bottle out of my car. He smashed my window.
Police also arrested Kamrowski. He's charged with disorderly conduct. Two men on one wild ride that started with a minor crash and ended with major drama. Kathy Park, NBC News.
That's pretty crazy. That is, I'm going to put this up here and see if this works. Okay. Why would you ever get on the hood of a moving vehicle? You could take a picture of his car as he drives away. Take a picture of him, so you've got an image, you've got a license plate. Why people think that they physically got to confront somebody to prove a point, it just is beyond me. Now, we're all human, we all have emotions, but what we've got to do, and hopefully what we're going to learn today, is what are the steps that we need to take so we don't, what we call acerbate, which means to get worse a situation. We want things to get better. We don't want it to escalate. We don't want it to creep up more and more. If you have a sibling, and I'm going to use this example, have you ever had a sibling where they hit you and then you hit them, and then they hit you back a little bit harder, and then you hit them even harder? As you can see, it's getting worse. And that's the thing about road rage. It starts as a disagreement, and then it starts to get a lot worse. So I want to show you this 2020. I think this is probably about, I think it's 8 minutes, but it's such a good newscast, and they did such a great job of explaining road rage. I want to show this.
We all have it in us, even if we don't know exactly where it is. A limit, a breaking point, a dark place where civilization ends and animal instinct takes over. And there may be no faster way to get there than right here on the roadways of America at the intersection of velocity and violence.
Oh, we have 2 victims here.
You've seen the stories leading your local news.
Another case of road rage.
And polluting YouTube. What feels like a daily diet of road rage reports. Just last week, this shocking video of an incident on a California freeway leading to a multi-car crash.
Call 911, Chris.
Nearly half of all drivers surveyed have experienced some form of road rage. Here in Denver, the mile-high city, drivers have hit new lows. Local officials reporting deadly traffic crashes have been slowly creeping up for several years.
We know you're fed up, so are we.
We came to see for ourselves. It didn't take long for us to find it. Rocky Mountain Rage.
Golly, that guy. He was like almost in our lane.
You want reasons? Look around. The city's rush hour turns freeways into ant farms. It's a stop-and-go sea of brake lights.
Yeah, it's not moving up there.
What typically should be a 30-minute commute can take nearly an hour and a half, enough to turn any driver into a ticking time bomb.
I was surprised at how bad the traffic is in Denver.
It's heavy, it's crowded, and it's aggressive.
Captain Jeff Goodwin of the Colorado State Patrol is fighting the uphill battle against an army of hot-tempered motorists.
Don't touch me!
There is that group of individuals that get up helter-skelter every morning. They're never on time. So now they're running late and they've got to make up that time. So how do they do it? They do it by pushing people out of the way, cutting them off, changing from the inside left lane all the way to the exit ramp right as they get there.
Goodwin believes he's pinpointed the root of the problem. With more than 100,000 people transplanting to Denver every year, it's as simple as too many metal machines, not enough pavement.
I used to think it was something like people cutting you off. But you know, one of the things that people really get angry about, if somebody honks the horn at you because you've sat too long at a light, I think they literally go from the Dr. Jekyll to Mr. Hyde.
Around the country, it's not just gangbangers and street thugs mixing it up. It could be any of us. Take a look at these guys in business attire doing the WWE SmackDown. We showed the good Captain Goodwin some examples of bad behavior, and he provided us some potentially life-saving road rules to help you. Rule number 1, don't make eye contact.
This motorist is out of control. And this victim is doing all the right things.
Just stare ahead, don't engage.
Right. Yeah, the minute you engage, who knows where this goes?
Rule number 2, never approach the window.
All right, wow, okay. This is more than over the top because now you have a gun involved.
So you're gonna pull your gun out? What kind of...
You never know who's packing heat.
Exactly.
Is approaching someone's window ever a good idea?
Never do it.
And most important, rule number 3, you don't always have to win.
Looks like it's gonna be over.
But as we see in this case from Houston, the parties involved just can't help themselves.
And here we go. There you go.
I mean, now they're at full-blown fist fight.
Right, this is what happens. It gets worse. The longer this goes, the worse it's gonna get.
It looks like they just need to win the argument.
That's what it is.
Oh. It was 4:15 when we hit the road with Goodwin and his team. They prowled the interstate looking for bad behavior.
We're looking for aggressive drivers.
Triggers.
Holy
which often lead to the road rage we see on the news. This is a 75 mile.
Well, we're doing 17 and a 75 at rush hour.
I got a lady who was texting if you want to pull her over.
Within minutes, Goodwin's team has spotted a common breed, a texter at the wheel. Goodwin says distracted driving, the #1 offense that sends drivers into road rage.
And how does that end up leading to road rage?
Well, when she's texting, she's not paying attention to everybody else out here.
Next, we cross paths with a Leadfoot speedster, the deadliest kind of aggressive driver.
I could see him in the rearview mirror weaving in and out. He was trying to find that opening.
And that's when people get mad.
Right.
It was now 5:45, the road rage witching hour.
Yeah, we're pulling out.
Goodwin says the peak time for trouble. And the cops had busted this aggressive driver for skipping the off-ramp and blazing her own trail altogether.
Right now, there's a warrant for your arrest.
Her prize? Some new bracelets and a ride in the fast lane to the county clink.
She doesn't have a valid driver's license either, so that's been canceled and denied, so she shouldn't be driving anywhere.
We'd found ourselves at a notorious hotspot.
So this is the frontage road where we have a lot of our issues.
And got a dose of full frontage fury.
So people will be frustrated, they'll come off the frontage road, and then they actually will do this, believe it or not. They will drive here.
Holy cow, this is so steep.
And they will find that steep drop down to the interstate, and they will bounce their way back down into Interstate 25. All because they're angry about sitting in traffic. Off-roading on I-25.
Yeah.
As Friday rush hour traffic mounts once again, we spot this guy who thought he could make up time bypassing all the drivers ahead of him, riding along the road's shoulder. But he's going nowhere fast today.
Over here. Hey, sir, do me a favor and stay in your car while we do this business, okay? You passed about 7 or 8 cars going alongside them on the right. You went over the white shoulder. That's not a lane for turning. It's not a lane for passing.
Like many road rogues, this guy's idea of defensive driving is making excuses for his alleged moving violations. He even called 911 to complain about being pulled over.
He stopped me first on the train track with a train coming down the road.
And now that he's caught, he's upset, just is not in agreement at all with what's going on here. So that's his beef.
There goes a guy. There he goes.
Next, check out this blue truck. The driver has jumped the median, passing up other cars, hightailing it the wrong way into oncoming traffic. Captain Goodwin pulls him over, hand on the holster.
What was it? You're not getting in the car.
I haven't seen anybody drive that aggressively in years. He's doing about 90 miles an hour. He damn near hit several cars back there.
I charged him with reckless driving. He just didn't plan on having any law enforcement around to stop him today.
You don't think it's just a Y chromosome thing?
You see a lot of aggressive driving from both sexes.
Everybody drives crazy.
Yeah, it's...
Okay, it's pretty crazy what people are actually doing behind the wheel of a car when they're emotionally unstable. I'm trying to put in the PowerPoint here, and it's just not coming up. Let me just drop it in here. Okay, this may be the only way we can do this. Okay, so what I want you to write down is these two definitions for anger and mad. As we said earlier, that human emotion is a natural thing. We have days that we feel good and happy and on top of the world, and other days, you know, we want to bite people's heads off. We're very angry and mad. So anger is a feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. So that is normal. Okay, we get angry at things. But mad is where you're acting out on it, where you don't have any reason or judgment. You're not thinking things out. Think of a young child in a store that is throwing a tantrum. That is someone that's mad. That's not anger. Okay? That is being mad. You're acting out on that. You've got to learn to keep it under control. Now, just like with peer pressure, it can be positive as well as negative. This is an article that I found where someone was driving too slow on a Florida highway, and a woman in a Jeep drove by this young mother and gave her the finger and was very upset at the way she was driving. Well, further down the road, it says that they found that woman in the Jeep off on the side of the road, and her vehicle was on fire. Now, this young mother could have just kept on been driving on saying, you know, that's karma, you know, you deserve this. She actually pulled over and went down and pulled this woman out of her vehicle while someone called 911. So this woman did not let the negative emotion of what she was feeling to get the best of her. She kind of flipped it. Some of the stories that you're going to find online tonight in your homework will just baffle you. The people used knives, as you saw in the video that I just showed you, golf clubs, bats, chains, their vehicle, men hitting women, women hitting men. There's no rhyme or reason to what is actually happening. So let's write down, why would our behavior change? What's making us so upset? More than anything, a lot of people are just running late. They got to get to work, they got to get to school, and if you're going too slow or not fast enough for them, you could actually be going above the speed limit and you're still not going fast enough for people. So they're going to tailgate you. Or it's just that people like to drive fast and you're in their way. Sometimes you may run a yellow light, you don't see traffic coming through, didn't see the stop sign. So you made a mistake with your driving. Someone that's tailgating, I'm going to teach them a lesson. They're getting too close to me. I'm going to brake check them. Some people don't like being passed. Oh, you think you're going to pass me? I'll speed up and I won't let you go. That's very common. It's almost like it's your road and I don't want anybody else to do anything different than what I'm doing. I'm going to control this situation, this stretch of the roadway. Everybody's going to follow what I'm doing. How about taking someone's parking spot? Now, especially around wintertime, when you've been waiting and waiting and waiting, you've got your signal on, you're waiting for someone to back out, and then someone backs out the opposite way from where you are, and someone kind of comes in and sneaks and takes that spot. Let me show you this.
Excuse me. I know you didn't think anyone would catch you, but you just slammed your door into my car. The least you can do is say you're sorry, lady. You don't have to take that tone. It's not like I'm hurting your resale value. I'm sorry. See? Like that.
How many of you remember that from Malcolm in the Middle? That is normally how sitcoms get their storylines. They get them from newspapers, and this was a very common thing around the holiday season. And you could see, as we mentioned earlier, it just kept on escalating. Started out as just a door tap, and then it just got out of hand. And I really thought it was pretty funny when it showed the car with a bumper sticker. It said, "War is not the answer." Okay, so here's a person trying to give the impression that, we don't believe in violence, yet they get caught up in it. So I saw the irony. I thought that was pretty funny. I do want you to write this down, because a lot of people tend to forget that you're trying to get justice by hitting somebody physically or hitting your car into their car, and you think, oh, my insurance company is going to pay for it. It doesn't always turn out the way that you hope, okay? And a lot of times you can't go back and redo things. So what I want you to write down is that road rage will lead to crashes where someone will back into you, or you're going to ram your car into theirs. Now you're getting the insurance companies involved, and just because you think that you're right, someone else may have a different viewpoint on that, and it may not turn out the way that you had hoped, and it could cost you hundreds of dollars. I don't know about you, but most people do not like physical confrontations. They'll do anything possible. And the other thing is, when we're in the protection of our vehicle, we think that we're 10 feet tall and bulletproof, that no one's going to know who I am and nobody's going to hurt me. I've got metal glass all around me, until someone, tries to get into your vehicle or pulls you out, or you get out voluntarily, and then you find out they're bigger than you, or they've got a bigger instrument to beat you with, and all of a sudden it doesn't turn out the way that you had hoped. Some states, New Hampshire is one, that will give tickets, and they don't have a ticket for road rage, but what they call it is aggressive driving. So if you're driving too closely, if you're running somebody off the road, there is a ticket that they can give you. Even though no one was physically hurt or no cars were hurt, maybe you just pushed a car off the road, and they tried to avoid you and they went off the edge, but someone saw it, you still could get the ticket. And some states like Virginia, it actually will cause you to go to jail. Now, a lot of times this jail isn't what we're talking about, for months, but it could be like days. It could be like 3 days, 3 consecutive Saturdays or something like that, just to show you that if you continue on with this type of behavior, that the next time it's going to be a little bit worse. They don't want people to lose their job. They don't want people to have too much of a financial burden, but we are trying to change behavior here. So there could be some type of a jail, kind of a scared straight type of thing. Okay, I want you to write down 2 more things, and then we'll probably, I'll give you the rest of your homework. I want you to write down, road rage starts off with a mental condition, which is that we become preoccupied with something that we don't have control over. Something that we perceived as important, like, I'm going to tailgate him to teach him a lesson. Well, that's not important. What's important, you get to school, important to get to work, get home. That's what you should be focusing on when you're driving. But when road rage takes place, then you're trying to think of ways that you can teach him a lesson, bump his car, get too close, physically harm a person. You become preoccupied with it. And it's not usually solution-based. Okay, a solution is when you're looking for the best outcome. A lot of times you're just thinking about impulse and you're acting on that. And it does take time to overcome. Okay, if someone's coming after you in a parking lot because you cut them off at the last intersection, stay in your car. We're going to talk more about this tomorrow, but you're physically going to be shooken up by it. So you've got to understand that. Don't put yourself in harm's way. So this is the last thing that I want you to write down. Physically, you're not going to feel normal. Your blood pressure is going to go up. Your heart rate's going to be faster. Your muscle tension is going to be a lot tighter. You're going to get really, if you're angry or mad, shoulders tense, grabbing the steering wheel. Your body language will indicate that you're not in a good space. You're not in a good spot. So it starts off mentally, and then it changes over to the way that you're feeling physically, and then you're going to act out on it. So we're going to stop here for today, and then we're going to finish up probably another 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes on road rage. And then tomorrow we're going to get into dealing with semi-tractor trailer trucks, pedestrians, motorcycles, and then we're going to get into young and old drivers. And then Wednesday will be distracted driving. And then review. That's what I think that we've got. So let me give you what I want you to do. So it's to find an article, which you're going to send me the link. You're going to have to make a comment tomorrow about maybe the story, because I noticed a few people didn't either sign in with the text message or well, I'm getting a phone call. I don't know why. Read chapter 11 and the state manual, and I will send you a handout dealing with highway driving, and you'll have to complete that. You'll have to do the answers and send them back to me. Okay, so make sure all your homework is being sent in on time so we can finish up. For those of you that have been scoring and not doing too well, take your time. You can go back and look through videos or some of the classes that we've had. I would just want you to know the information, because Thursday it's kind of either up or down with doing well. So we're going to go with that. Let me just kind of get back here.
There are hundreds of thousands of truck accidents every year.
Let me go back here. There we go. Now I'm in the picture. For those of you that didn't see it, I'll just end with this. This came up again. I had this in. This is my son catching a foul ball. But tomorrow, remember, try to be here right around 4 o'clock so we can get right in. There he is. Okay. So we'll start off with road rage tomorrow and then get into sharing the road with other users. So have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Remember to text me that you stayed here for the whole time. See you tomorrow.